Let me paint you a picture. High in the mountains bordering the Malaysian states of Johor and Malacca, there's this peak, shrouded in mist and legend. It's called Gunung Ledang, or Mount Ophir. For centuries, sailors used it as a landmark, but in the local folklore, oh, it's so much more. It's a place that is both sacred and cursed. And this is the story of its guardian, and the empire that completely fell apart trying to claim her.
So what do you think it takes to topple a great empire? You might think of a massive war or a terrible famine, right? Or maybe some kind of betrayal from within. Well, this legend, it suggests a totally different answer. One that you won't find on a battlefield, but inside the heart of just one man. Get ready, because this is a tale that weaves together real history and incredible myth. It's a cautionary story about a super powerful sultan, an unbelievably mysterious princess, and a test that was specifically designed to be failed.
All right, so the stage for our story is the mountain itself, Gunung Ledang. And you have to understand, this wasn't just a pile of rocks. To the people at the time, it was a mystical fortress, a whole other realm where the normal laws of nature and man just didn't apply. To go there uninvited, that was basically asking for trouble.
And at the very heart of this magical place was the Puteri Gunung Ledang, the princess of Mount Ledang. She was its guardian, its protector, a being of just immense power. And her beauty? Well, it was said to be completely beyond that of any mortal woman. But who was she, really? The legend actually gives us two different ideas. On one hand, was she this timeless, supernatural being, a jinn or a spirit, who had just always been there, protecting the mountain? Or, on the other hand, was she actually a human princess from the powerful Majapahit Empire, who ran away to the mountain and became one with its magic? The real power of the story is that we don't know for sure, blurring those lines between myth and maybe a hidden piece of history.
Now let's meet the other major player in our story. He didn't live on a mountain, he lived in a palace. We're heading back to the 15th century, a time when the Malacca Sultanate was at the absolute peak of its power and influence.
And the guy in charge of it all was Sultan Mahmud Shah. History tells us he was a pretty formidable leader, yeah, but his defining trait, the thing everyone remembered, was this dangerous, all-consuming pride.
So, after his wife, the queen, passed away, the sultan's vanity just went into overdrive. He completely stunned his court when he made this declaration. Think about it. He didn't want another noble bride or a strategic political marriage. No, he wanted a myth. He wanted to own something that wasn't even from his world.
To the Sultan, this wasn't really a marriage proposal. It was a test of his own absolute power. He seriously believed that his authority didn't just cover men and empires, but that it stretched into the spirit world itself. So he sent his absolute best men, including the legendary hero Hang Tuah, on this basically impossible mission.
And so the journey up that cursed mountain began. It was a climb that would push the limits of mortal courage against some serious otherworldly power.
Man, to climb was just brutal. It was like the mountain itself was fighting back. There were magical storms, strange, disorienting sounds. It was so bad that even the great warrior Hang Tuah, who was pretty old by then, just couldn't go on. He had to turn back. Only one man, Tuah Mamat, had the guts to keep going. And when he finally reached the summit, he didn't find some radiant princess. He found a mysterious old woman, who was either the princess in disguise or maybe her gatekeeper.
So after Tuah Mamat delivered the Sultan's proposal, the old woman came back with the princess's reply. And get this, she said yes, but only if he met 7 conditions. Now, these weren't just demands. They were a brilliantly clever way of saying no. They started with the absurdly extravagant, then they moved to the physically impossible, and finally they landed on the morally monstrous. And that last one, that's the real gut punch. It perfectly illustrates what this whole test was about. See, the first 6 conditions were designed to test the Sultan's wealth and his power, but this last one, this was designed to test his humanity.
Now, a wise ruler would have understood the message, right? The princess was politely but very firmly saying no thanks. She set an impossible price so the Sultan could back down without losing face. But Sultan Mahmud Shah, he wasn't a wise ruler. He was an arrogant one. And all he saw was a challenge.
So the Sultan's attempt to meet these conditions, it became his kingdom's ruin. To build the bridges, he completely emptied the royal treasury and crushed his people with impossible taxes. To collect the hearts of mosquitoes and germs, thousands were sent into the jungle on this insane, futile quest. To gather the tears, young women were tormented.
His personal obsession became his people's living nightmare. But you have to be asking yourself, how could he even consider sacrificing his own son? Well, in his madness, the Sultan had actually convinced himself of this terrible, twisted logic. He truly believed that marrying this magical princess would make him immortal, and with that power, he could just father a new, even greater heir.
So this brought him to the ultimate choice. In this one moment, who was he? Was he a father, bound by love for his child, or was he a king, for whom everything, even his own flesh and blood, was just another resource to be used and spent?
The Sultan made his choice, and in doing so, he set in motion the downfall of an entire civilization.
Now, the legend actually gives us two different versions of how this final moment went down. In one, more magical telling, the princess herself appears just as he raises the sword. She shames him for his cruelty and then vanishes forever. In the other version, it's his own advisors who intervene, stopping him and forcing him to see that he's destroyed his kingdom for a complete fantasy. Either way you tell it, the result is the same. He fails.
And this is where the myth connects directly to real-life history. The legend works as a powerful allegory for what really happened. The Sultan's quest bankrupted the state, it crushed the morale of the people, and it exhausted all of its greatest warriors. So in 1511, when the Portuguese invaders showed up, the once mighty Malacca Sultanate was just too weak both financially and spiritually to defend itself, and it fell.
So, what are we supposed to take away from all of this? Well, the story is a timeless lesson on the arrogance of power, how a ruler's personal desires can destroy everything. It's also a pretty fascinating look at feminine power, where the princess uses her intellect, not brute force, to defeat a tyrant. And finally, it's a stark warning about valuing materialism, those shiny gold bridges over life itself.
In the end, the Sultan lost everything because he tried to possess everything. The princess, on the other hand, by saying no, became something eternal. She's a symbol of integrity, of nature's power, and of everything that can never be conquered by pride or by force.
So the legend of Puteri Gunung Ledang leaves us with one last question to think about. A question about the very nature of power. Is true strength found in your ability to conquer the world around you, or in the wisdom to conquer yourself?